What's going on, everybody? Let me get my microphone set here. All right, now we're ready to roll. How's it going, everybody? Storm Team 4 Chief Meteorologist Brian Nisnansky here. If you happen to be watching this right now, could you please let me know if you're hearing me properly? There we go. I think they're all getting mixed up. Apologize for all that. Stop sharing. Bear with me for a second here, guys. There we go. That should do it. Not a share. Let's not do sharing. There we go. Cool. All right. Let me know if you guys are hearing me properly. I just had to adjust a few things. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for joining Niz Weather Wizdom. The time is roughly 11 o'clock here on our Thursday, still morning, I guess. We've had quite a week with weather. I mean, we had that dirty snow yesterday morning. We had another 60-degree day. There were 60s a couple days ago, up and down. And now we're going to end the week with a bigger but compact storm system. If you have a question or a comment, please fire away. Mary, thank you so much for letting me know that you're hearing me properly. That's great news. Yeah, we'll get right to it. So again, off with a period of rainfall. And with that period of rain, we're going to have, maybe up to around a half inch of rain. And then eventually we're going to see a transition over to some snow tomorrow morning. Now, that will happen sooner for our western spots, later for our lakeside spots. In fact, lakeside, the vast majority of this event is going to be rainfall. The biggest question with this, which we're going to dive into with the computer models, the biggest question is where the axis of heavy snow lines up. The models have sucked with this. It hasn't been good. Sometimes models are great, others not so much. They've been fluctuating a lot. And part of this is that even a minor fluctuation in where the center of low pressure goes with such a compact system equates to big adjustments in where the axis of heavy snow lines up. I mean, if we're talking about like a 50-mile swath that's going to get the heavy snow, just a slight adjustment really could wiggle with that. So let's get right to it. Let me share the screen here again. My apologies. My program is being a little wonky on me. Okay. All right. So let's start off with the current radar picture. Let me load that up here. And we have an exiting system, and then you see that we have the area of snow that's starting to line up across Nebraska. You get the idea already. That's not that large of an area of snow. Now, there's some warm frontal stuff out ahead of it. In fact, looks like a pretty good cluster of storms heading into St. Louis. But eventually this will kind of develop and really fully develop overhead later tonight into tomorrow. So again, if you have a question, a comment, please fire away. We're going to be breaking down the timing though, and the snow amount. So you might just want to wait for that. All right, let's go and we'll start you off with the HER computer model. The HER computer model has a pretty good handle initially what's happening. Now, the HER also was the first to pick up on this more southeastern track of this area of low pressure, whereas, a couple days ago or even yesterday, I posted a model that showed the swath of heavy snow going into north central Wisconsin. Now it looks to be more of like a south central into northeastern Wisconsin type of deal. But let's go through the time. We'll scrub through the time here. Okay. By 1 o'clock this afternoon, light rain showers for Iowa, some heavier showers, maybe even thunderstorms across central Illinois, maybe even some severe weather there. Snow mix over towards Omaha. All right. So for us, it's after 6 o'clock that I think we'll start to see some of these showers move through. Maybe even a few rumbles of thunder. The bulk of the rain looks to fall around 9 o'clock this evening through maybe 1 a.m. Let me pause here. This is 1:15 a.m. And you can see a mix of precipitation from Green Bay through the Fox Valley and just west of Madison, and then all snow over towards La Crosse and south of La Crosse. Now let's scrub through time a little bit more. That mix line really staying northwest of 151. So from Fond du Lac to Madison up to Green Bay. Through 4 a.m. Again, if anything here in southeastern Wisconsin, rain showers during that time frame. All right, now let's go into even farther tomorrow morning. And what you'll see is a general progression of that rain snow line. By 7 a.m., looks like just rain here in Milwaukee. Now, another change on these most recent computer model runs is a later exit of this system and a later changeover to snow. So by 7 o'clock, if you have a commute tomorrow morning in Milwaukee, probably just wet. And then notice by 10 o'clock, we finally change over to a bit of snow, but by then things are starting to really wind down. And then we're done in the afternoon. So worst conditions for us in southeastern Wisconsin, likely during the early morning hours, northwest of Milwaukee. You got to get out to like Dodge County, Washington County, and Fond du Lac County, maybe Jefferson County. Now, if you're watching this right now and you're in central Wisconsin and up towards Green Bay, late tonight into early tomorrow morning, things are going to get dicey for you folks. All right, so how much snow are we talking about? Now, I've been talking about, well, before we get to the mounts, let's see if any questions or comments are coming in. And again, I really appreciate any interaction with this. Sandy says, keep it south. Sid says, hi, Brian. Snow, we come in. Racine, Sid, Racine really looks like, maybe a little bit on the grass, not much at all. Sai says, excellent. All right, cool. All right, so not too many questions, comments. I will take this time briefly, though, to let you know if you are happening to be watching this on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button right now if you're watching it live or later this afternoon. Keep in mind the time right now is roughly 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. So in the afternoon, again, if you're watching this, you can fire away with a question in the comment section, and hopefully I'll be able to answer it. But also, if you're on Facebook, I encourage you also after this to head over to my YouTube page. Search for Brian Niz. You can find Brian Niz Weather Wiz, and and hopefully be able to subscribe there as well. Ben wants to know, what do you think about as far as melting on the pavement? I think that is a huge factor. I think especially Milwaukee. I think if we do transition over to a period of snow, most of our accumulation will be on the grass. However, we could get a brief heavy burst of snow, and then that offsets the warm pavement. You need a good, healthy band of snow to offset the warm pavement that we have. And that's still a possibility. Probably not until like 7, 8 o'clock, though, tomorrow morning. All right, let's get back to it. Let's talk snow amounts. Kara says, hi, Brian. I need to travel to Platteville tomorrow morning. How will the roads be? Not great heading west. Let's start off then with the review of the timing and what she's heading to Platteville tomorrow morning. So let's rewind this. Okay, here's 7 o'clock. I think at some point you will encounter, let's say you hit the road at 7 o'clock. At some point you're going to encounter that rain transition over to snow and maybe a brief burst of heavy snow. I'm not saying impassable, but certainly some slippery road conditions and dealing with some snow tomorrow morning heading out to Platteville. I think you probably can do it. It depends on your comfort level. Everybody's different. Some people don't like driving in any snow. Others, have a vehicle that handles really well. So just know your comfort level. But I don't anticipate impassable roads or absolutely awful conditions. But what you see here is that transition line, especially, I think the precipitation looks to be pretty heavy during that. All right, let's talk snow amounts. Let's change over to the European computer model. I think this pegs the snow amounts, at least that heavy excess of snow, the best we can do right now. But this is, I would say the European is kind of the middle ground right now. You have some models that are going farther southeast and some like the GFS still going to the northwest. Here's the European model that brings that excess of heavier snow still across south central Wisconsin, maybe getting into northeastern Wisconsin. But by then, I think you start to deal with some mixing even up towards Green Bay. So like the Dells up into Marquette County, Waushara County, that's where you have the best chance of 3 to 6. So when looking at this map, honestly, if you're up towards like Fond du Lac and Dodge County, just pay attention closely to any small adjustments to the forecast, because if it slides slightly south, you're in for several inches of snow. Now compare this to the GFS model. This is the GFS, which has been stubborn on keeping this going into north central Wisconsin and keeping that access of heavier snow farther northwest. I will say GFS has been consistent, but now it's the outlier. But it's still holding on to the consistent track. We'll see if it comes into fruition. Here's the HER, which I typically lean on in these short-term scenarios, but the HER has been so all over the place on the amounts. I think it overdoes some of the mixing potential here, but I mean, it does bring that access of heavier snow right across central Wisconsin, but just does not output that big of amounts. Really has a cap on things mixing and melting, which may end up being the case. So you're like, okay, so what does this all add up to? Well, here in southeastern Wisconsin, here's our forecast. Brendan Johnson tweaked this morning, made a couple minor adjustments myself. And for us here, I think Lakeside, it's going to be really hard to get really any accumulation except for a little bit on the grass from Sheboygan to Milwaukee, Racine, and Kenosha. Maybe if the wind shifts strong enough out of the west on the back side of this and we get on the tail end of things late tomorrow morning, we get some snow. But yeah, I think Milwaukee Metro is looking at less than an inch in general. And really you got to get west of, 43 north of Milwaukee and 94-41 south of Milwaukee to get some accumulation. Right now, going with, the potential for 1 to 3 inches for Fond du Lac and Beaver Dam. But notice that darker blue farther west. As I mentioned before, just be on your toes for that to potentially wiggle in your direction, which then we would end up with advisories for, Dodge County, Fond du Lac County, Jefferson County, maybe. All right, let's break down a basic timeline of this, then I'll follow up with any other questions that you may have. Please fire away. Again, thanks all for being here. And tonight, all rain for the most part here in southeastern Wisconsin. Now, central Wisconsin, northeastern Wisconsin, yes, a little bit more in the way of snow, but all rain tonight, half inch. Early tomorrow morning, we start to see that transition over to snow for our northwestern counties, Dodge County, Fond du Lac County, Jefferson County. That's where probably we're going to have our worst conditions for the morning commute. It's probably not until 7, 8 o'clock that we see a transition over to snow in Milwaukee area and around an inch of slush. But if you are right along the lakeshore, probably not even that. And then by tomorrow afternoon, windy and maybe some blowing snow as temperatures cool down in the countryside. So that sums it up, everybody. Let's see any other questions or comments that may be coming in. How about Germantown? Karen wants to know. Germantown, I think you're around an inch of slushy snow. Transition over to snow not until 7, 8 o'clock. So Milwaukee metro area, I would consider Germantown in that same case. Hey, Mama Niz, how you doing? Luann Znansky watching. How will the ice on the lakes up north? Plenty solid. Lots of ice on the lakes this time of year. Inland lakes, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of thawing of the warmth earlier this week, but there's a ton of ice on those lakes up north. Great question, though, Mom. Why do you ask? All right, everybody. Have a great day. Hit subscribe below if you are on YouTube. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. Later.